Welcome, dear viewers, to Secrets Behind the Stars, the place where unspoken truths and delicate whispers find a voice. If your heart beats faster when a rumor turns into a revelation and a memory becomes a headline, you're in the right corner of the internet. Subscribe, drop your thoughts below, and remember, those who tap the join button are the reason stories like this can be told with care and depth. Tonight, we're walking into a tale woven from cinema and sentiment, one that flirts with the ache of nostalgia and the braveness of restraint. For days the industry chatter felt routine, until one piece of news cut through the noise with startling clarity. Akınözü had personally asked Ebru Sahin to be the leading woman in his next romantic project. There was no loud campaign, no convenient leak designed to stoke attention. It arrived softly, confirmed in murmurs by people close enough to overhear what is said when doors are closed and phones are face down. It was the kind of revelation that makes the past knock on the present. Because for many, this wasn't just casting. It felt like a heartbeat waking. The memory of their unforgettable pairing in her Kai hasn't faded with time, it has deepened. Years have passed since those long days on set and those intense nights of filming, yet the feeling remains. Their chemistry wasn't simply convincing, it unsettled in its honesty. Viewers didn't just witness it, they carried it. To imagine them stepping into the same frame again was like pulling a beloved book from a shelf and finding the pages still warm. Insiders spoke of a story built on reconciliation. Not a copy of what came before, but a mature love that survives distance and silence, a tale of two people who found each other too early and then again, exactly when they could finally tell the truth. According to several well-placed voices, Akin didn't merely say yes to a script. He championed the idea and then put one name at its center. He believed only Ebru could inhabit the woman in question, a character aching for a do-over, yet too wise to risk breaking in the same places. It seemed, from the outside, like destiny lining up its dominoes. But the first surprise was how quietly the dominoes refused to fall. When the offer reached Ebru Sahin, most expected a swift acceptance, a thrill running through schedules and calendars, a reunion announced with fanfare. Instead, she responded with a steadiness that felt like experience speaking. Those close to her say she sent a message that carried both tenderness and distance, a sentiment that traveled far because it sounded like the truth. Some doors are treasured precisely because they stay closed. Her answer, shared in confidence but quoted by more than one source, landed like a sigh in a crowded room. Not every chapter, she suggested, should be written twice. Why step back from something destined to dominate headlines and reignite global fascination? Was it a strategic decision, rooted in craft, or a more intimate boundary? Before we go further, dear followers of Secrets Behind the Stars, pause with me. Would you have wanted this reunion with all your heart? Or do you understand the instinct to hold a memory gently, without demanding it perform again? Tell us what you feel in the comments. And if you believe in the kind of storytelling that listens as much as it reveals, the join button keeps these conversations alive. As social feeds filled with edits and opinions, theories bloomed like midnight flowers. Some insisted that Ebru was guarding her range, avoiding the kind of typecasting that turns a career into a loop. Others argued that their connection, captured once with such rawness, might blur the lines if revived, the kind of alchemy that is safest when left in a sealed bottle. A friend of the actress hinted at something more delicate. She respects him deeply, the friend said, but not all feelings should be stirred again. Sometimes the kindest choice is to admire what once was and refuse to place it under the bright, unyielding lights of expectation. Meanwhile, Akınözü faced questions of his own. At a later interview, when a reporter asked whether he would have liked to share a project with Ebru if things had aligned, he didn't reach for a prepared line. He paused. The kind of pause that turns silence into its own language, and then spoke with a gentle honesty that traveled fast. Of course he would welcome it, he said, because what they built before wasn't a trick of timing, it was the sort of truth that can't be faked. But he also emphasized that every artist's choice deserves respect. A simple sentiment, articulated without edge, became a spark. Suddenly, old scenes were back on every screen. Fan accounts were stitching together looks and breaths, and comments insisted that what the audience witnessed back then wasn't only performance, it was recognition. Behind the curtain, whispers say there was one last conversation before Ebru's final answer. The story goes that Akin reached out personally, not to persuade recklessly but to be understood. He told her, with warmth, not pressure, that this wasn't an attempt to rewind the clock. He saw it as a new journey, one that reflected who they are now, not who they once were. And Ebru, composed and reflective, answered in a way that felt like care disguised as restraint. Recreating something luminous, she suggested, risks thinning its light. She would rather leave it untouched than see it reduced by repetition. Those words threaded themselves through the hearts of people who have loved and remembered and tried to be wise. Some fans were convinced the exchange revealed a deeper bond, the kind that exists with or without labels. Others praised her self-awareness, as if she were protecting a sacred corner where work and feeling once met and made something fragile. Even producers, long invested in the mythology of a reunion, couldn't argue with the gravity of what happens when certain pairs share a frame. One executive, after a long quiet, put it cleanly. When Akin and Ebru are together, the camera stops forcing the moment and becomes a witness. At a recent charity event, when Ebru Sahin was asked about her former co-star, she didn't evade. She smiled softly and answered without embellishment. She values him, she said, and that won't change. It wasn't a refusal dressed up as politeness. It was gratitude with boundaries. It sounded like a door left open to appreciation, not to repetition. And then, just when the conversation seemed ready to drift back into the vault of what-ifs, something small shifted. During a press appearance, Akin was asked whether he believed their professional paths might intersect again, someday, under a different sky. He smiled, not in a way that promised, but in a way that allowed possibility, and replied that life has a habit of rerouting us when we least expect it. He wouldn't predict it, he hinted, but he wouldn't forbid it either. It was the softest version of an old phrase, never say never. What exists between them isn't an item you can weigh on a scale or a detail you can footnote neatly. It is the echo of something that once happened on screen and perhaps quietly just beyond it. Not a romance we can certify, not a friendship we can reduce, but a chord that still vibrates when touched. Maybe the reason it lingers is the very reason it shouldn't be retold. There are stories whose beauty lives in the first telling, stories that lose color when pressed too hard for a sequel. For those who hoped with all their might, please know this isn't a dismissal. It is a kind of respect, for the work, for the years, for the audience that carries both. The industry thrives on comebacks and repetitions, on remixes and returns, and sometimes those deliver what we crave. But sometimes the bravest act is to protect what already belongs to everyone precisely because it was done once, perfectly enough, at the right time. If you have ever stood at the edge of a memory and wondered whether to step back inside it, you know how this feels. To choose not to doesn't mean the memory is weaker. It means you're choosing to keep it strong. Perhaps that's what Ebru did. Perhaps that's what Akin understood, even as he left the window open to tomorrow's weather. It is possible to love what you made together and still decide not to remake it. It is possible to honor a spark by refusing to handle it carelessly. Meanwhile, the clips of Herkai continue to glow in late-night playlists, in the corners of the internet where fans speak a language of looks and pauses. Comment sections read like diaries. They saw something then, and they still feel it now. They don't need signatures or statements to tell them why the moments mattered. And maybe that's the gift in all of this, that even without a new script, the old one keeps offering warmth. We'll keep listening to the quiet, to the intervals between announcements, to the sentences that end with a smile instead of a period. And if the day comes when a story arrives that asks them to meet again on a set, a story that neither diminishes the past nor repeats it, we will be here to watch it unfold with steady hearts. Until then, memory can be enough. Thank you for spending time with us here on Secrets Behind the Stars, where we follow not just the timelines but the lifelines. If this delicate thread of a story stirred something in you, click like, leave your thoughts below, subscribe for more carefully told tales, and remember, those who choose join help ensure we can keep looking past the surface and into the soul of the stories that find us. Stay curious, stay kind, and keep your eyes trained on the spaces between the scenes, where the truth often waits and whispers.